Right now, while you're watching this, your lawn is trying to tell you something. And by the time you can actually see the problem with your own eyes, you're already 2 weeks too late to fix it the easy way. There are 4 warning signs showing up in your grass this week that almost nobody notices until the damage is already done. Miss all 4, and you're looking at brown patches, thin spots, and a lawn that takes until October to recover. Catch even one of them early, and the fix takes you 15 minutes on a Saturday morning. My name's Lenny, and I've spent the last 20 years walking lawns for a living, which means I've knocked on a lot of doors after the damage was already visible, and every single time, the signs were there a week or two before the homeowner ever noticed. Today, I'm going to show you exactly what those signs look like, why almost everyone misses them, and the 15-minute fix for each one before the real heat of the season locks the damage in for good. Let's get into it. The first warning sign is the one most people walk right past every single day without ever looking down. It's called the footprint test, and it takes 10 seconds. Walk across your lawn in a straight line, then turn around and look at the path you just made. On a lawn with plenty of water in the blade, the grass springs back up behind you within a second or two. You can barely tell anyone walked there, but when a blade of grass starts running low on water, the cells inside it lose what's called turgor pressure, which is just the internal water pressure that keeps a blade standing upright and rigid. Once that pressure drops, the blade doesn't have the structural strength to spring back. It stays flattened. Your footprints sit there in the lawn for minutes instead of seconds, sometimes for an hour if the stress is bad enough. That's not a lawn that's about to die. That's a lawn asking you for water today, not tomorrow, not this weekend. Most homeowners never do this test because their irrigation system is running on a timer, and a timer doesn't know what turgor pressure is. It runs Tuesday and Friday at 5 a.m., whether the lawn needs it or not, and it keeps running that same schedule straight through a week where the grass needed water 3 days ago. That's the trap of automation. You bought a smart controller for $200 so you'd never have to think about watering again. And the trade-off is that you stopped looking at the actual grass. The controller solves the wrong problem. It guarantees water gets applied on a schedule. It does nothing to tell you whether that schedule matches what the lawn is doing in real time. The fix costs you nothing and takes 10 seconds. Walk the lawn once a day, ideally in the evening, ideally in the sunniest, most exposed section of your yard, because that's where stress shows up first. If your footprints disappear in under 30 seconds, you're fine. If they linger, water within the next 24 hours regardless of what your timer says. The second sign is more subtle, and it's the one I get asked about the most because people mistake it for early disease when it's actually just moisture stress. Look closely at the blade itself, not the whole lawn, just one blade up close. A healthy blade under normal water pressure holds itself flat and stays a rich, even green from base to tip. A blade running low on water starts to fold along its center vein, almost like you creased a piece of paper down the middle. At the same time, the color shifts. It doesn't go yellow like a nutrient problem. It goes a dull, slightly bluish gray, almost like the color got washed out of it. Landscapers call this a blue-gray cast, and once you've seen it once, you'll spot it from your car driving down the street. Here's the mechanism behind it. When a plant senses it's losing water faster than the roots can replace it, it closes tiny pores on the leaf surface called stomata. Those pores are how the plant breathes and how it loses water through evaporation, so closing them is the plant's emergency brake. But closing the stomata also changes how light reflects off the leaf surface, and that's what creates the dull grayish look. It's not damage yet, it's the plant defending itself. The problem is what happens if that defensive state holds for too many days in a row. A cool season lawn can survive stomata closure and dormancy for 4 to 6 weeks without permanent injury to the crown, which is the part of the plant just below the soil surface where new growth comes from. But every additional week past that 6-week mark increases the odds that entire sections of turf don't come back, and you're looking at bare dirt in September instead of a lawn that just went through a rough patch. The fix here isn't heavy watering. It's exactly the opposite of what most people do, which is panic and run the sprinklers for an hour every day. That actually delays root development and wastes water. What the grass needs at this stage is about ½ an inch of water every 2 to 3 weeks, just enough to keep the crown alive without pushing new growth the plant can't support in the heat. Confirm the color, don't ignore it, and don't overcorrect. Quick, before I get into the next 2 signs, if you're serious about fixing your lawn without wasting your weekends and your money at Home Depot guessing at products, you need the right plan and the right products in the right order. That's why I wrote the book, A straight step-by-step blueprint to a greener lawn with fewer weeds, telling you exactly what to buy, where to get it, and when to put it down. Scan the QR code or click the link below to grab your copy, and let's get back into it. The third warning sign lives underground, and it's the one that catches people completely off guard because everything above the soil can still look fine while this is happening. Grab a plain screwdriver from your garage, any length works, and push it straight down into your lawn in 3 or 4 different spots. If it slides in 6 inches with light hand pressure, your soil structure is in good shape and water is moving through it the way it should. If you have to lean your body weight on it just to get 2 or 3 inches down, your soil has compacted, and that changes everything about how your lawn handles heat. Compacted soil has fewer air pockets between the particles, which means water can't soak in, it just runs off the surface or pools and evaporates before it ever reaches the root zone. Roots can't push down through compacted ground either. So instead of growing 6 or 8 inches deep the way they should, they stay shallow, sometimes only an inch or 2 down. A shallow-rooted lawn on compacted soil is the single most common reason a homeowner waters correctly, on the right schedule, at the right time of day, and still watches the lawn go brown in a heat wave. The water is going down, it's just not reaching roots that never grew deep enough to use it. Foot traffic is the #1 cause. The strip of grass between your back door and the grill, the path the kids run to the trampoline, the spot where the dog does his laps along the fence line. All of that gets hammered flat over months until the soil underneath turns into something closer to concrete than dirt. The real fix is biological, not mechanical. A lot of companies want to sell you a $300 core aerator rental every spring. And that does help, but it's treating a symptom that comes back every single year because you're not fixing what caused the compaction in the first place. What actually loosens compacted soil long-term is feeding the biology that lives in it. Earthworms, fungi, and soil bacteria are tunneling through your yard every single day, and a healthy population of them does the aerating for you for free, continuously, instead of once a year with a rented machine. Spread a 1/4 inch of quality compost across compacted areas twice a year and water it in. That compost feeds the exact organisms that create the air pockets and channels your roots need to grow deep. It's slower than a rented aerator, but it's a permanent fix instead of an annual chore, and it costs about $15 for a bag that covers a few hundred square feet instead of a few $100s for a machine rental. The fourth sign is the one that costs people the most money, because by the time they notice it, they're not just dealing with stress anymore, they're dealing with disease on top of stress, and those two problems compound each other fast. A lawn under water stress is a weakened plant, and a weakened plant has a much harder time fighting off fungal pathogens that are sitting in your soil all the time, waiting for the right conditions. The sign to watch for is uneven color across the yard. Not an overall dull tone like sign number 2, but patches, circular or irregular patches, that are a slightly different shade than the grass around them, sometimes with a darker ring at the edge. That ring is called a smoke ring in the trade, and it's one of the first visible markers of brown patch fungus setting up shop in a lawn that's already stressed and can't defend itself. Here's why the stress and the disease are connected and not two separate problems. A healthy, well-watered plant produces natural defensive compounds in its tissue that make it harder for fungal spores to establish an infection. A plant running on stomata closure and reduced water intake redirects its energy towards survival instead of defense, and the fungal spores that are always present in your soil suddenly have an opening they didn't have a month ago. This is exactly why the lawn care industry loves to sell you a fungicide as a completely separate purchase from anything related to watering. They're not lying about what the fungicide does. Propiconazole and azoxystrobin are both real, effective systemic fungicides that do prevent and slow brown patch when applied correctly. But selling you the fungicide as the whole solution, without ever mentioning that a well-hydrated, deep-rooted lawn rarely gets bad enough disease pressure to need it in the first place, means you're buying the $35 bottle every single summer instead of fixing the upstream problem for free. Generic propiconazole concentrate runs about $15 to $20 at an agricultural supply store, and one bottle covers a full season. Applied preventatively once nighttime temperatures hold above 70 degrees for a few nights running. That's the same active ingredient, at a fraction of the price, and applying it before the smoke rings show up instead of after is the difference between a $15 preventative step and a full lawn renovation that costs you a weekend and a bag of grass seed in the fall. There's a fifth sign, and this one doesn't show up on the grass at all. It shows up on your driveway, your sidewalk, and the flower bed edging where your sprinkler heads are throwing water they shouldn't be. Most homeowners assume that if the sprinklers are running, the lawn is getting watered evenly, and that assumption is wrong more often than it's right. Walk your yard while a zone is running and look at where the water is actually landing. If you see a head throwing half its pattern onto concrete instead of grass, or a head that's tilted so it only covers a narrow strip instead of a full arc, you found a section of your lawn that's been running dry for who knows how long while the rest of the yard looks perfectly healthy right next to it. Here's the test the pros actually use, and it takes 15 minutes total. Set out 5 or 6 empty tuna cans scattered across the zone while it runs. Let the zone run for its normal cycle, and then measure how much water landed in each can with a ruler. If one can has 3/4 of an inch, and the can 6 feet away has 1/10 of an inch, that's not a small variance. That's a section of lawn getting roughly 7 times less water than its neighbor on the exact same schedule. That mismatch is invisible on a smart controller's app. The app only knows the zone ran for the program number of minutes. It has no idea that half the water from that zone landed on your driveway instead of your root zone. The fix costs almost nothing if you catch it early. A replacement nozzle runs $2 to $5 at any hardware store, and straightening a tilted head or trimming grass that's blocking a head's pattern takes about 30 seconds per head. Compare that to what happens if this goes unnoticed for a full season, which is a section of lawn that thins out, goes dormant early, and eventually needs reseeding, all because of a $2 nozzle nobody checked. And while you're out there with the tuna cans, pay attention to whether a rotor head and a spray head are sharing the same zone, because they put out water at completely different rates. A spray head can release up to 4 times as much water per minute as a rotor, and running them together on one valve means one part of the lawn is drowning while another part is starving. On the exact same watering schedule every single time that zone runs. If you find that mismatch, either separate them onto different zones or swap the mismatched heads for ones that put out a matching rate, because no amount of correct scheduling will fix a system that's physically delivering water unevenly in the first place. Here's what it actually looks like when you catch this early instead of late, because I want you to see the timeline so you know what to expect once you start walking your lawn and reading these signs instead of ignoring them. Day 1. You run the footprint test and notice your prints are lingering for close to a minute in the sunniest section of the yard. You also spot the blue-gray cast starting on that same section. You water that evening, half an inch, early enough that the grass has time to absorb it before nightfall. Day 2. Nothing visibly different yet. The water is moving down into the root zone and the plant hasn't rebounded on the surface. Day 3. The footprint test in that same section starts snapping back within 10 or 15 seconds instead of lingering, and the color has shifted back toward a normal green, though it's not fully back to its deepest shade yet. Day 5. The color is even across the whole section again. No more blue-gray patches. And if you run the screwdriver test in that spot, it should be sliding in noticeably easier than it did a week earlier. If you've also been feeding the soil biology, Day 7, the section is indistinguishable from the rest of the lawn. And if you hadn't caught the signs on Day 1, this is roughly the point where an untreated stressed lawn would instead be showing its first visible brown patches and disease pressure setting in. Day 10 through 14. This is where the two paths really separate. The lawn you caught early is thickening back up and building resilience for the next heat wave. The lawn that got ignored is now dealing with actual dead tissue, thinning turf, and the beginning of a bare patch that's going to need reseeding in the fall instead of a 15-minute fix in July. I want to be straight with you about why almost nobody teaches homeowners to actually watch their lawn like this instead of just running a timer and hoping for the best. There's no product to sell for walking your yard once a day and looking down at your own footprints. There's no bag, no bottle, no subscription box for a screwdriver you probably already own. The entire lawn care industry is built around selling you a response to a problem after it's visible, not a habit that catches the problem before it exists. A fungicide, a reseeding kit, an aeration service, a bag of starter fertilizer for the bare patches. Every single one of those is a real product that solves a real problem. But every single one of those problems could have been avoided for free if the stress signs had been caught during the week they first showed up, instead of the week they became impossible to ignore. That's not a conspiracy. It's just how a retail industry works. Nobody puts up a billboard for noticing something before it's a problem, because there's nothing on that billboard for you to buy. So here's your plan for this weekend. And none of it costs you more than a few dollars if you don't already have these tools in the garage. Walk your lawn once a day for the next 2 weeks, ideally right around sunset when stress shows up most clearly. And pay attention to how fast your footprints disappear. Keep a screwdriver by the back door and push it into 2 or 3 spots across your yard, especially the high-traffic areas, once a week, and if it's not sliding in at least 4 to 6 inches with light pressure, plan a compost application within the next month. Watch for that blue-gray folded blade look in the sunniest, most exposed parts of your lawn, because that's always where trouble shows up first, and treat it as a today problem, not a this weekend problem. And if you do start seeing patchy, uneven color with a darker ring at the edges, especially after a stretch of warm, humid nights, get a preventative fungicide down before those patches spread instead of waiting to see if it clears up on its own, because it usually doesn't. Finally, run the tuna can test on at least one zone this weekend, because most homeowners have never run it once, and it's the single fastest way to find a $2 problem before it turns into a $200 reseeding job. Do those 5 things on repeat and you'll catch almost everything your lawn tries to tell you weeks before it ever turns into a problem you can't fix in an afternoon. I'll leave you with the thing I tell every homeowner I meet on a job site, because it's the difference between the yards that stay green all summer and the yards that go through this same cycle of crisis and repair every single year without fail. The lawns that struggle aren't usually struggling because of bad luck, bad soil, or a bad summer. They're struggling because nobody walked them regularly enough to catch the warning while it was still small and cheap to fix. Your grass isn't silent. It's telling you exactly what it needs, in real time, every single day, through the way it springs back under your feet, the color it holds in the afternoon sun, how easily a screwdriver slides into the ground, and where the water actually lands when the sprinklers kick on. You don't need a smart controller, a subscription lawn service, or a garage full of specialty products to hear any of that. You just need to walk outside and look down. That's the whole warning system, and it costs you nothing but a habit. Thanks a lot for watching, and if this helped you catch something in your own yard, let me know in the comments what you noticed after watching this. Now, if you're serious about fixing your lawn without wasting more money guessing at products, you need the right equipment and a plan. My book appearing on your screen right now is a straight step-by-step blueprint to a greener lawn with fewer weeds. Exactly what to buy, where to get it, and when to put it down. Scan the QR code or click the link below to get your copy, or head to fixyourlawnin30days.com to get the lawn you deserve. Have a good day, and I'll see you in the next one.